with Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. I'm your host, Greg Oram, along with my fellow Forest fanatic, all the way from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
You can never know what it's like. Your blood like winter freezes just like ice. And there's a cold and lonely light that shines from you. You wind up like the wreck you hide behind that mask you use. And did you think this fool could never win? Well, look at me, I'm coming back again. I got a taste of love in a simple way. And if you need to know while I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? Looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid.
We are still standing, just about. Richard Spray, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah, a little Sir Elton to get the juices flowing right after a great match. Yeah, I'm doing really well. How are you guys?
I think we're good. Just when you thought it was all over, just when you lost that last bit of faith, just when it seemed it was all done and dusted, and the destination next season was looking more like Real Betis than Real Madrid, write this team off at your peril. It's never simple and it's never pretty. But going into the final game of the season, Champions League football is well and truly back on. Yes, we know it's not in our hands and we're still relying on slip-ups from Villa or Newcastle and possibly even Man City. But to be in this position with one home game to go, well, we would all have taken that, wouldn't we? The well-deserved win today away at West Ham has kept the dream alive. And here with Richard and I, to digest it all, we have the Texan Ranger, Bruce Johnston, and the man with more risqué stories than the Mills Boon's back catalogue, Paul Morley. Evening, gentlemen. Evening, Paul Morley. How are you?
I'm good. I won't comment on that intro, but I will say that I hope Elton doesn't take you for copyright, given that his uncle scored for us in the cup final. So I think you're on safe ground there.
Oh, don't worry. I've breached copyright more times than I've had at dinners, mate.
Yeah, true. I'm good. I'm really good. I feel a little bit sun-kissed. Either sun-kissed or a little bit still kind of the blood pressure still up from that last 16 minutes of added time 3 or 4 hours ago, whatever it was. That it was ridiculous. But I'm good. And as I'm sure you'll know, as I'm sure we'll get into, very happy to celebrate the first team in Premier League history to double their points from one season to the next. So yeah,
indeed, we've got lots of stats, I think, and things like that to talk about this episode. Brucey over in Texas, my Texan Ranger. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, especially after calming down of whatever that ending was we witnessed, but still on a high. The away win, I think that's our 10th of the season, and obviously we've already qualified for Europe. So just excited and excited to see where the last day takes us.
It is exciting. It's what we would have all wanted. We know that the last few weeks have been a bit testing, and we can talk about the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and the wins that we didn't get when we thought we should have done, especially when we're talking about home to Everton and the home to Brentford and so on. But we are where we are. Don't forget to get involved in the comments. Let us know you are here. We want to give you shout outs and all that kind of jazz. And if you're tuning into this episode a bit later on via Apple or Spotify, we thank you so much for joining us as well. Also, it's really important as well that we remember that once you become a Forest player, once you associate with the club, I think it's very difficult for that kind of link to ever evaporate. And when we went to Wembley a couple of weeks ago in the semi-final, Steve Cook was on Twitter talking about how he's a fan, he's going, his kids are fans. And I think it's always been the case. And at West Ham today, we had the one and only Joe Lolly. There's the picture on screen in the away end. And so credit to Ella Chester at Ella Chester 4. That's her picture I've nicked. So Ella, thank you for that. That's Ella in the picture with Joe Lolly. So it was always great to see ex-players supporting the club, and Joe Lolly was certainly a brilliant servant for us in the championship years. Okay, we hope that you'll consider to like and subscribe to this video. Find us on X, find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and all the other usual places. You can help us by pressing like and pressing subscribe. Richard Spray, let's have your general thoughts on what we saw at the London Stadium today.
It was not what I'd expected or hoped for, but with that save that Matt Sells had to make. But after that, we sort of settled in, and I just thought our movement off the ball and on the ball, was just brilliant. I thought we were passing the ball crisply. I thought getting into nice spaces, a lot of 1-2 sort of passes that were going on at the certain point at the beginning of the match. We just seemed like we had a better, hand on the press, and we had more intensity about us, which was great. And so, yeah, it was just nice to see a different energy. And, it's unfortunate that maybe at the core of that energy, I'm sure we'll speak of this, was just doing this for the great servant to the club. Speaking of servant to the club, Taiwo Awoniyi, and just the brilliant guy he is and the brilliant footballer he is, and just tragic thing that obviously everyone's aware of that happened, and the fact that the boys came out and were just energized to get one for him. And I thought that was fantastic, and they certainly came through on their promise, didn't they? They came through on that desire. So yeah, it was fantastic. I just thought that we just looked a little bit different, looked more like ourselves, a little bit more control, a little bit more packed, and so forth.
Yeah. And I think it's important as well when it comes to Taiwo that we shouldn't underestimate what he's been through. He's still with us. He's alive. He's getting better. But to clatter into that post a week ago, and then have to go what I think might have even been a couple of surgeries to rectify a ruptured intestine. That is tough to get through. And we were so chuffed that Taiwo had posted a message prior to the game. I won't read it all, but it talked about that it was a very difficult season this year, one of the most difficult of his career. But throughout it all, he's felt the love of the fans. We know that he's a man of God, and he says with the grace of God, he's grateful to still be here, to still be fighting. He's in good spirits. He wants to thank his teammates, coaches, staff, and all the Forest family and so on. And I think more so than anything else, his love for the fans is reciprocated back. He's felt the love from us, the fans, and he has felt, that Forest and the family and the football fans in general have been so important to him, and he wants to give that back. So he's going to carry on, and he's going to recover, and we know that he is a warrior, and we hope to see him back in the red shirt next season. Beforehand, prior to the match, T-shirts were worn by all the players. We're all with you, Taiwo. Really nice touch. It's just a way of showing support. It's a message for everyone to see that says, we're with you, Taiwo. And when he's seen that, I'm pretty certain that he would have felt uplifted and felt like he's still part of things. And obviously, Morgan Gibbs-White scoring, holding up the Awoniyi shirt. And at the end, there was, of course, that amazing picture of all the fans behind the team holding the Awoniyi shirt. So, he hasn't been forgotten and won't be forgotten, Bruce. So a really lovely tribute for Taiwo Awoniyi. Bruce, sorry, I probably should have made it a bit more clear that I was coming to you then. He's been an important player for us in the first couple of seasons, definitely. But this year, he's definitely been more of a peripheral player. But it just goes to show the love they've got for him.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's obvious. It was on display today. What he means to this side, obviously, what he's done on the pitch hasn't been up to what we were expecting. But obviously, he means something to a squad. And there's something to be said about the tightness of the squad and what that does to help out the team and the results. So even if you're not playing, are you doing what you need to do to help the team during practice and drills and stuff like that? And obviously he's there, and just being a good human being, he obviously is, definitely helps the cause. I was not expecting the team to get behind them as much as they did, so that impressed me to watch that today, especially after Morgan's goal and running over to the to the side and grabbing his jersey and everybody rallying around. And it wasn't about Morgan's goal; it was about Taiwo in that moment. So that was impressive.
So the game starts, Paul, and within the first minute, as Richard touched on, there was that header from Souček, a fantastic save from Matt Sells yet again. And then within the fifth minute, we have our own chance. So it's almost end to end. Did you think Morgan Gibbs-White might have put that one away against Areola?
It was a bit of a basketball game, wasn't it, for the first 10 minutes? Yeah, I mean, I guess firstly on Sells' save, great anticipation and athleticism to tip that over the bar. That was it was a bit of an uncharacteristic misjudgment from Milenković, who sort of misjudged the flight of the ball, didn't get under it, and but obviously Morgan made up for it later on. Yeah, Gibbs-White, a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, he controlled it really well on his chest, and it's being closed down. I think in that moment, all you want to do is hit the target, and you probably think 8-9 times out of 10 you hit the target and it goes in. I think more than criticise Morgan for that, I think credit to Areola for making himself big and making a good save. I don't think Morgan could have done a huge amount more than he did. Arguably, he probably hit it too well. If he'd have scuffed it and it bounced in the ground, and then probably would have looped over the keeper and into the net. So, yeah, difficult to criticise him for that. And obviously, 5 or so minutes later, he took the next chance that he got. So, yeah, good start for us. One thing I did write down in that was it was nice to see us use the long throw a couple of times in the first 5-10 minutes, because thinking back to last week. There was a couple of opportunities where we had the situation where we could have done that. We did use it last week for some reason, which was frustrating me. So the fact that we did, just kind of take every opportunity to get the ball in the box and create a bit of mayhem, which nearly led to a goal, was good to see. So I hope we do that again next week as well.
I didn't think West Ham really were offering that much up in that first half, Richard. I mean, I know they started with that chance from Souček, but after that, Forest took control. We had the Gibbs-White chance we just were talking about on another day, as Paul says. He scuffs it and it goes in. He perhaps hit it too cleanly. And then there's the Areola mistake that Morgan latched on. Morgan seemed like he was up for it today, and we asked for him to be on point, didn't we? And he certainly was that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he took last week's performance and he kind of elevated about another few percent, right? I think he was being looked at as one of the best players against Leicester last week, and he sort of found himself in spaces and driving forward as he does, and he on those half turns, those a few moments there on those half turns that he does so brilliantly, and his through balls were very precise today. But yeah, I mean his awareness because a little bit shaky getting the ball out. I think at the beginning of the match, we really stressed them considerably with our press. There's a few times where Wan-Bissaka had some significant space on the left side, our right side of the pitch. And then, they were crossing, trying to get the ball into the box and trying to, create problems and so forth. But for the most part, yeah, there wasn't a significant, nothing that I can vividly remember in that sense. But yeah, he was just great. I mean, he was everywhere. And he was just the awareness to see that ball coming out, step in front of the defender, nick the ball off of him and immediately turn around and shoot, was just great. And, I thought that was just a result of what we were setting up early in that match, which was to really put them in a bind at the back and try to control things and try to put pressure on them to create mistakes. And it was great. I mean, it was just a great thing to see because we had the king of the press on the pitch, right, playing in that wing role. So why not? Because that definitely provides that opportunity more often than not. So yeah, he was just fantastic. He played like a captain today, and we needed him more than ever. And
it's funny you mentioned Dominguez, because I still have to say that his work goes possibly unnoticed by some people. I think maybe more and more people are noticing, to be fair, what he does for the team. He doesn't stop running. The interceptions that he makes, the sort of the duels that he wins, the way that he puts himself across the pitch, for me is crucial. And I absolutely don't want to see him leave the club in the summer. He has played a lot of minutes this term and a lot of important minutes as well. And he seems to be the safety guy that Nuno turns to. I know that a lot of people would prefer to play without two out-and-out wingers, but with no Hudson-Odoi, it was Dominguez again that he turned to. So we're looking at a 4-3-2-1 more so than anything else, with Elanga kind of hovering in next to Wood and having more control and more play around the front line. And I think that really suits him as well. But Bruce, Forest seemed definitely in control in that first half. It was just a question of whether we could capitalise and get a second goal. Were you feeling particularly worried that we weren't getting that second goal before half-time?
Considering the previous results, yes. But I felt like West Ham wasn't much of a threat after that first push. I felt like we were pretty comfortable in defense. Sells was obviously on it. Our back line was on it. So Nico Williams had an amazing defensive performance today. Talk about unsung heroes. I felt like he was the unsung hero of the day, especially towards the latter half of the game. But yeah, no, the only worry in my head was, again, just this is Nottingham Forest, and our previous results haven't been great. So that was really the only concern I had. I felt like the way we played in the first half, I was really hoping we'd keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really want Matt Sells to get that Golden Glove. I think he deserves it, and he steps up, Paul, at the times we need him to make the saves. I mean, throughout the match, there were times when he was making pretty important saves, really. So how disappointed are you feeling that we didn't get a clean sheet in the end?
Yeah, it was a shame, wasn't it? Yeah, because I think Raya's got a clean sheet, and I think they're level now, aren't they, on clean sheets? And they've got Southampton last game of the season, so I'd expect them to probably get one there. Yeah, I think the whole clean sheet thing is a team effort, isn't it? I mean, obviously, Sells, huge credit to him for how he's performed this season. And today was a really good example of that. Just every time that they had a sniff, his positioning was brilliant. I think that's the thing that he's really improved on, his positioning. The one thing I would say, the goal that we conceded, I know Morato's sort of header wasn't great. Could Sells have come for it and taken command in that situation? Possibly. It felt like it was a little bit of a nothing ball into an area where if Sells had been a bit more dominant, he might come out and grab that. But look, yeah, disappointed he didn't keep a clean sheet. But I'm sure, like all of us on this podcast, if you'd offered the players 2-1 before the game, they'd have taken it. So yeah, disappointing, but it's a minor sort of sub-note to what was a great result at the end of the day.
Yeah, the 3 points are definitely more important. But as we got literally to half time, the corner came in, and Murillo again seems to be the guy that gets clattered. He picks up a knock. He goes down like he's been shot, or he can't carry on. And then, of course, we all thought then that that's it. Murillo's going off, because he's done. And he was even he had the car come round to pick him up. And then lo and behold, like something out of WWE, Murillo's new nickname has to be The Undertaker.
Oh, that would be amazing.
The way that this man has the ability
to put on that
sit up out of nowhere. It's incredible. It's incredible, because I was with my dad in Orlando as usual, and we did literally all do double takes, because we were just convinced he was going off. We saw Morata warming up, and there's Murillo on the fucking pitch, like as if I'm fine, hallelujah, I'm fine. I'm like Lazarus back from the dead. I mean, Richard, Murillo's so important to us. So I guess, look, we saw last week the lack of Murillo, I think, possibly cost us. So it was certainly good to see him back on the pitch, wasn't it, after the halftime?
For sure. I think Pat Morita was somehow resurrected himself and came out like, Miyagi-Do karate is looking back on the pitch. Yeah, it was phenomenal. And he didn't look like he lost a step. I think Bruce was saying, like, just his explosion, just in terms of because we know he's a good athlete, right? We know he's strong. Exactly. That's what I think happened. That's what happened. Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi, came out of nowhere. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought, I mean, he looked explosive. I mean, towards the end of the match, obviously he got hit pretty hard again. I think he clashed with a couple of West Ham players, and as we were trying to clear the ball, and I think he was taking it out of the penalty box and kind of got taken down or what have you. But the guy's just an absolute warrior, and he's an absolute tank too. I mean, thank goodness he's as good a shape as he is, and how well he takes care of himself. But yeah, it felt very much like that Karate Kid moment, or, you know, like Raph likes to say, the magic injection that American football players seem to get, right, Bruce, in certain games where they just suddenly magically appear and they're just completely fine and everything all is well, you know? So yeah, whatever they did, whatever happened, it certainly worked, and we needed it because we need every ounce of him on that pitch, as you referenced in the last match, where you could see the difference between him and Murillo in terms of their ability to diagnose the moment and kind of close down and create, you know, difficulties for opposing players. So yeah, and he's just his athleticism. I mean, the first half, just his acceleration with the ball was incredible, to see that again. So you just realize what you're missing when he's not around. So heaven forbid, you know, next year, if we do make it to Champions League or beyond, just in Europe in general, we lose him. It'll be such an unfortunate event, because we know how good of a player he is and how much talent he has and how he's continuing to progress as well. But yeah, that was incredible to see. Yeah, when we saw him warming up, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? I was like, how in the world did that happen? That was the last, like you said, the last images were him on a cart. I'm like, usually when that happens, it's game over.
I thought it was a replay of the pregame warm up. I genuinely thought it was them showing that. It was.
We call it the magic spray or the magic sponge over here. Well, I think it's, you know, the same meat, different gravy. Do you know what I mean? Right. I want to say thank you again to Mark Wayway and FFC for another £2 donation. He says, I think Murillo had both legs replaced at half time, quite possibly. And Bobby Franco says, by Murillo's reaction, I thought he was out of the game, then out for the season, then out for the next season. And I want to say, Bobby Franco, great to have you in the live chat. A regular commenter on Spotify, and really supportive of the podcast. So thank you so much for all your support and comments throughout this season, Bobby. It's really appreciated. And the one and only Dr. Anna is with us. She says her heart rate has just recovered. What a finish. Do we ever do it the easy way? And she's asking, how do you donate? Can you do it via YouTube? Yeah, there is a little dollar sign, I think, that's somewhere. You can push that and give money if you like. We don't, you know, we're easy going. Bobby Franco says, shout out from Texas. So I didn't know you were over in Texas. Another Texan. There you go.
Howdy.
Another Texan Ranger, Bobby Franco. Howdy. Right. Okay. So, second half underway. Forest in control, Paul Morley. Desperately needing the second goal, or do you think, you know, we can see this out?
I think it certainly came at the right time, didn't it? Again, we didn't really look under any great duress or threat. We were sort of managing it pretty well, and it felt like it was sort of meandering towards one of those. I was thinking, you know, when's he going to bring Murillo on? Was basically what I was thinking. It went on and on and on. I think it was pretty much on 65 minutes. I think we scored something like that. So it was around the time that he normally goes to Murillo time, goes to about 5. But yeah, the free kick was an identical place that we got the free kick against Palace before that led to the corner that Murillo actually scored from. So I was quite, you know, feeling quite optimistic about the situation. But yeah, it felt like the second goal came at perfectly the right time. Although it took 6 minutes for it to be authorised. That's the right word.
Are they trying to find a reason to not give a goal, Paul? Because it just felt nuts to me. We could all see that Dominguez had possibly a foot hanging off slightly, but then wasn't involved in any kind of thing to mess the play up. It's got to be sorted out, hasn't it?
I mean, the thing is, they took about 4 minutes before they then showed they kept showing the same angle. So, okay, Dominguez is offside, right? So now let's see if he's interfering with play. And they kept looking at the same angle. Then eventually they went to one which was sort of a camera that sort of from Sells' end perspective, obviously a bit zoomed in, which showed that actually the only player that Dominguez interfered with was Milenković. Exactly. The only player he got in front of was his own player and put him off, which is probably why it came off his, off his back or his shoulder rather than him heading it in. If Dominguez hadn't been there, he probably got a clear head on it. So yeah, it was just a bit of a farce, wasn't it? I mean, obviously, ultimately the right decision was made in the end, but just completely unnecessary.
I was convinced they were going to rule it out, Paul. I actually said they're going to rule it out. I was convinced.
It was a little bit like the one that Milenković scored at home against Southampton, where Wood came from offside, and in that situation possibly did a little bit more than Dominguez did. But Dominguez literally had no contact with the West Ham player. I say got in front of.
He just ducked like that.
Yeah, he got in front of Milenković more than anything else. Yeah, so it's a nonsense. So if it takes that long, it's clearly not. It's not an obvious error, is it? It's so not an obvious error. So, like I said, ultimately the right thing. What it was the right decision in the end, but just an unnecessary farce, which then led to all the extra time at the end and all the farce that created as well.
Anna Hewson, Dr. Anna, has given us a $9.99 super sticker, and she says she wasn't quite sure about how the sticker happened, but have a drink on me. Thanks for being the best podcast. You're all great.
What is a super sticker?
I know. Well, Dr. Anna's a superstar. I know that
Just
much.
for her, yeah.
She's an absolute legend. So, Anna, thank you so much. You didn't have to do that. We are grateful. Thank you. That's all I can say. What I would say as well to anyone listening or watching, we're not a podcast that is doing this full time. Richard and I have jobs, we have businesses, we have lives. So we don't do this to try and monetize and stuff like that. So anything you give to us just helps with costs that go towards putting the podcast together. And it's really, really gratefully appreciated. You don't have to do it. It's not necessary, but it is really gratefully received. And we love you and we thank you for doing so. So thank you very, very much. It's a really nice gesture. Okay. Brucey, Anthony Elanga with his 11th assist of the season. He's a player that possibly has gone under the radar. And I say that because Richard and I released the Player of the Season episode yesterday, and you and Paul and all the other contributors all had a video that you put together to talk about your preferred player. And I think, Paul, you chose Milenković like I did. And Bruce, you were Matt Sells, I think, if I remember rightly. And all these people had and have got a great claim. But nobody chose Anthony Elanga. Not that they don't think he's a good player, but they just preferred other people. So I'm going to come to you now for your minute or so loving on Anthony Elanga and the 11 assists he's now got to go with his 6 goals this season. Pretty special season, eh?
It is, but the fact that nobody picked him for player of the season just goes to show you how well we've done this season, right? I mean, you had to me it was Milenković, Sells, or Morgan Gibbs White, and I had a very, very hard time choosing between those three. But anyways, Anthony Elanga has been the spark for us this season on so many occasions. When we were flat, was it Man U? He scored the breakaway goal.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because the guy freaked out, right? If not for him, that's a 0-0 draw. That's 1 point instead of 3. So many times he stepped up in big moments for us. His set piece have been, in my opinion, the best that we've seen this season. But it's his speed, it's the assist, it's the just toss it in the box and what gets that massive head on it that has really that's really done us the most. So yeah, no, I'm very glad we did not sell him. I know he had a bad start. I know there was some questions there, but to me it was just give him some time because any winger, much like a wide receiver in the NFL, they go through stretches where sometimes they're on and sometimes they're not. But when they're on, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I now think that if Milenković is the Serbinator and Murillo is the Undertaker, that if we talk about Elanga, he with that spark, he's probably the defibrillator.
Well done.
I know, I make myself laugh there. Time for a break.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Yes. The perfect cheesy mix. Stu Freestone, Cheese Trader, you know what to do. Alrighty, so 2-0 up, Richard Spray, but Forest are Forest. And the changes happen when the closer comes on that we all wanted. So Morata comes on, and then Sangare, who again I thought was tidy today. Thought he was tidy, decent. He looks a bit leaner again. He's come in and he hasn't really He hasn't done anything wrong. A couple of little sticky moments, but that's fine. We all have them. Danilo, I have to say, I thought Danilo when he came on was very good. I thought Danilo was very good when he came on. He was breaking up the play, and he was active and getting involved, and he was on the front foot, and he put some very important interceptions in. So for the 10 to 15 minutes that Danilo was on, I thought he was very good and fair play, and it was really great to see. So I'm really pleased with that. But Richard, again, the ball kind of like, as Paul alluded to before, kind of floated in. And I think Sells possibly could have put a big call. Keeper's ball comes out, grabs it, goes to the deck, but he didn't do that. But Morato's weak header. I mean, I know Bowen's finish is great, and he's still, but it's an avoidable goal, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to Paul's point, I think that's always been the challenge with Sells, is that, he's absolutely a brilliant goalkeeper. I mean, he has been incredible this year. I mean, you and I talked about that in our player of the season, in relation to what Bruce had put out there. And I think Jack as well. And Bowie, we can't forget Bowie's support of Jack's dog. Yeah. Of Matt Sells. But yeah, it's that propensity to kind of stay on the line a little bit. He just has these moments of hesitancy. And similarly, Morato just does not seem to understand how to manage angles, trajectory. The guy at 6'4" cannot seemingly get a decent head on a ball, no matter how hard he tries. Plus, he'd been long said by Benfica fans that he tends to have these mental lapses, and he certainly did in that moment. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was a difficult thing, I guess, from having to kind of, your body's not like moving forward. He's kind of like moving backward and having to twist to try to head it. So maybe, yeah, I mean, you could put it on both of them, I think, in terms of not doing their job to the best of their ability and kind of drifting into some tendencies that maybe both of them have. But, that's about all you can say about Matt Sells. On a rare, he's just occasionally got that moment in him. Morato, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm being a bit too punitive, but I'm not that impressed. He has he can manage the game on the ground pretty well. And that there are times where he kind of maybe his passing isn't quite as crisp, or, he's got some decent ability on the ball, but he's not spectacular. I don't know. He's been all right. He's been certainly in the moments where he's been out of game. He's typically been good other than today outside of that. But I mean, it was a hell of a finish by Jarrett Bowen. I mean, taking it on the volley after he flicked it to himself was pretty incredible. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think there was two different players that could have done different things in that moment, but that's been our Achilles heel recently. It's just these errors that seem to lead to it. It doesn't seem like we get away with it. Does that make sense? We don't have any, and there's no latitude there. We seem, once those errors occur, they always seem to end up in the net. So thankfully it wasn't when we were, at 0-0 or something of that nature, or they were up where it was 1-1 where that occurred. So we put ourselves in a decent position leading up to that point. But yeah, just the mental lapse is unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's a problem though, because with however many minutes were left, although once they scored, let me interrupt myself. Once they scored, I thought Forest handled the next 5 to 10 minutes pretty well.
For sure.
I thought that they got themselves up the pitch and didn't panic and actually were quite cute with their play. Of course, then we had 11 minutes of added time. So West Ham woke up and came to life, and they weren't interested until they scored. That was the weird thing. But of course, it doesn't take much to kind of change a game. And that goal, Bruce, kind of changed it a little bit. And Forest then had to manage the time towards the close. So what did you make of that, like that 10, 11 minutes or so? And what did you make of the ending with the referee? It's very bizarre, wasn't it, Brucey?
It was a disaster. I texted Richard. I've never walked away from 3 points being mad. I wasn't mad at the game. I wasn't mad at our result. I was mad at just how much that the ref took away our excitement. Really, it was disaster. Yeah, he made a mockery of it. I thought 11 minutes was a little heavy, and then it went on for 15 or 16 minutes, I believe, until he finally blew the whistle. But to Richard's point, or y'all's point, I should say, after they scored the goal, yeah, we settled into it really well. But Morato actually had he calmed down after that error. He did really well himself. He blocked a shot that left him in pain for a few minutes afterwards. So he was putting his body on the line as well. So I was very mad when he allowed that goal in, but at the same time, I felt like he recovered well as well. So credit to him for at least doing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was just one of those funny games that felt like was just going to slip away from us again. And even though we've been really good, and we absolutely deserved the 3 points, and we deserved it last week, and it has felt like that the last couple of weeks, nothing has gone our way, and that also includes opposition or other teams around us, I should say, that have been trying to win games. They've all won the games. No one seems to have slipped up. No one's done us a favour yet, and it's kind of almost been the worst kind of case scenario coming to pass. And I think we all said, and Danscape said, and Paul said as well, that it would take an absolute amazing turn of form from Aston Villa, championship winning form in their last 5, 6 games, 7 games, and relegation form from Forest for it to kind of make it a close thing at the end. And that's kind of what's happened. I know that we find ourselves going into the last game, Paul, with an absolute fantastic chance still. It's out of our hands. And something I think you were looking at was the first 22 games and the last 15 games you sent through to me. What have you got here for us to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is all about, I guess, squad depth and preparation time / recovery time. So the 22 games basically takes us up to the Southampton home game, inclusive of that. So when we won 3-2 against Southampton, which is almost, you could kind of pinpoint that as where in the second half of that game where we started to get a bit twitchy and the form's been a bit iffy since then. But for those first 22 games, we had more recovery time than our opposition between games. This is 11 times. It was even 9 times. So only twice, basically, in those first 22 games did we go into a match where we'd had less days than the opposition. So it fell quite favourably for us. That was a mixture of playing against teams that were in Europe and teams that were in EFL Cup and all that sort of stuff that obviously we weren't. Then if you flip since the first of those last 15 games was Bournemouth away, which obviously we got beat 5-0. Since that game, we've played 15 times and we've only had one game. I can't even remember what it is off the top of my head, which one it was. I think it might have been a Tottenham game, actually. It was definitely a Tottenham game because they'd had a Europa League in the weekend before. That's the only game in the last 15 games where we've had more recovery / prep time than our opposition going into games. So, a complete sort of, 180 flip in terms of the test that's going to have on the squad and our ability to recover physically from games, and particularly because we obviously tend to play the same players if they're all available. I think there's a few stats around there about the number of minutes that our key players have played compared to other teams, and that's really taken its toll in terms of points per game. So if you think of it that way, it's hardly surprising that we've dropped off a little bit. And so that's one thing in terms of, just to add a bit of context about this whole. I know there's been the phrase bottlers has been thrown around a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and I think actually aside from this stats that are on the screen, today absolutely has quashed that whole criticism, because I think if to come away and win, to go and win today in the manner that we did and see it out in the way that we did, 115-16 minutes. Yes, we've slipped up in the last few weeks, but there was a huge amount of bottle on show today, and in a positive sense. So we certainly can't be level with the bottlers tag. So yeah, the other thing I would say about that whole stat piece about recovery time and stuff, it just gives us a little bit of a window into the importance of getting more depth in the squad for a European run, because if you think about playing twice a week for the most part of the first half of the season next season, whichever European competition we're in, that'll be the case, and it's going to look more like those last 15 games where we don't have much recovery time compared to opposition. So that's the reason to kind of go away and strengthen. But just before we finish on that point, just come back to Morata again. As much as I was critical of his involvement in that goal that we conceded today, I think the one thing we need to bear in mind is that we are holding him up from a standard perspective, probably against Murillo. I think Milenković is in the side, and we know what Milenković does, and it's who plays alongside Milenković. And is arguably going to go down, in 15, 20 years' time as one of the best defenders ever played for Forest. So to hold Morato against that standard is quite difficult, quite harsh on him to do that. And when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, the mistakes that he's made in the last few weeks obviously stand out because of how brilliant Murillo is. And that's not taking anything away from Murillo, but I guess it's just a layer of context to the whole Morato sort of criticism piece, in that he's a good footballer. We've heard from a number of people, I think, around the club that the squad feel very, very comfortable when he's on the pitch and rate him highly. So that should speak volumes. And again, like any player in any position, when you're getting 10, 15 minutes every week, as we've seen with Taiwo, we've seen with loads of people this season, it's really difficult to get into a rhythm. And if he was playing week in, week out, possibly the sort of things we've seen in the last couple of weeks wouldn't happen. So I think just a word on Morato about being too quick to judge him. There's some context around the challenges that he's having at the minute.
Yeah, you're right, and totally agreed. And I think he has been really good in some games. When he came into the side last minute against Everton away, I thought he was excellent in that game. And there's been times that we were cooing about him. He was coming off the bench as the closer, and we went a whole set of games without conceding when he was on the pitch. We were kind of holding him up. And so, maybe it's worth remembering that he has contributed an awful lot to this team this season. And also, he's still 23. It looks like he's 33 with a wife and 6 kids and a mortgage, and works on the building site with that neck tattoo. But, he's 23 years old. And so, fair play to him. It's not easy coming off the bench. It's a pressurized situation. It's Premier League football. And best league in the world and all that. Danscape says, good evening, gents. He's watched the game at a pub in the Lake District over a few shandies, enjoying the first 80 minutes of it. Clenched. What was clenched, eh? What was clenched for the last 20 minutes, Danscape? That's what we want to know, what was clenched. He says, daft refereeing. We looked good. UEFA Champions League, here we come. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Before we do, Richard Spray. Just want you to take us through a couple of slides, because there were some important performances from some key players today. Before we leave the West Ham game entirely, we touched on Anthony Elanga and how important he is. And WT Analysis, friend of the podcast, if you haven't followed WT Analysis on X/Twitter yet, please go and do so. WT Analysis, really, really good information on Forest. They're talking about, well, he's talking about given the role of the front two today, it gave Elanga the license to roam all over the field and cause West Ham's backline more problems, and his set piece delivery was again a reward. He's a Young Player of the Year nominee. Anything you want to add on Anthony Elanga, Richard?
I just want to add the fact that I believe it was said on the broadcast today that we know that's his 11th assist this season. And if I heard correctly, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they said that was the most assists we've had in a season, certainly in the top. So the fact that it's a club. So that's pretty incredible considering what we were thinking about him at the beginning of the season, when his form wasn't quite there, his confidence wasn't quite there. But if his value truly was £50 million, which again, we don't know if that's actually true. Maybe we did ask the financial guru that is Raf that question, but from a transfer market perspective, but I would suggest that he's worth more now. And as you pointed out, he's barely turned 23 years old. So there's an awful lot of great football left for him as his mind continues to catch up with the elite skill sets he has physically. It's going to be frightening because some of his finishing this season was superb. I mean, that left-footed shot where he curled it in that far post against Ipswich was one of the best goals I've seen this season. It was absolutely tremendous. And he's doing the right things. He's just taking players on aggressively, using that pace, that advantage that he has. And he's doing it with such great precision too on the crosses, because he really should have had another assist. He probably should have 11th assist in a match against Leicester where, Chris Wood he had that header right over the bar. So he's been absolutely tremendous for us, completely necessary and critical to what we're doing. And we would be nowhere where we are without him. So yeah, I just want to shout him out because you pointed out, Greg, no one chose him for player of the season on Talking Reds, but we gave him a little bit of a shout out in the episode, but
we did, and rightly so. And the player that got the player of the match award, Milenković, he pounced on the loose Areola mistake to smash it in the back of the net. And we talked about how he was kind of taking the game by the scruff of the neck, Bruce, coming to you on this. So Milenković, he's a player that has still divided a bit of opinion sometimes. He has been truly one of our best players for such a long, long time. Where are you on Milenković, and how important do you think it is we hold on to him next season?
I think it's vital that we hold on to him, first of all. He's been phenomenal. I think the only criticism that you can think of is he doesn't have the goals and the assists, right? But what he does in transition and what he does on the defensive side is second to none, at least on our squad. But he second game in a row, I would agree. I think Milenković had a lot of shouts for player of the match, but I agreed with the Premier League player of the match award he got today because I thought he was phenomenal. And when he went off, that shocked me a little bit, first of all, but you definitely saw a dip going forward without him on the pitch. So he was huge for us today and last game.
He will be huge for us, hopefully, in the final game as well, next Sunday against Chelsea. Nikola Milenković, Paul, I know that you feel about him as I do. His stats are on the screen with WT analysis as well. We're saying a lovely afternoon's work for Serbian, looking to high press out of the line to win the ball back early. And again, he's got another goal. That's 5 goals for the season. When he joined us at the start of the season, I mean, could we have expected him to have had such the impact he's had?
No, not to this degree, I don't think. I mean, I remember Adam Summerton, the TNT guy, did a session on Forest Focus with Matt about various things, and Milenković came up in that as quite a big topic of conversation. He was sort of saying then that he was surprised that Forest could attract Milenković. It felt like he would sign for not necessarily a top team, but someone like a Spurs or in that sort of 10th to 6th bracket was where Adam sort of felt Milenković fit, and evidently that's turned out to be true.
Milenković has now got us into being that team, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Which is why I think for me he's had the biggest transformational impact on the team this season. So immense today. Again, both ends of the pitch. I think I said in that video for the player of the season thing, which we did recorded a few weeks ago, that we're going to need moments from him at both ends of the pitch between now and the end of the season to get to where we want to be. And today he certainly proved that. And just can't speak highly enough of his contribution. And he's a natural leader. And coming back to the whole Gibbs-White situation. Obviously, if Morgan were to leave us, I hope he doesn't. Obviously, you've got Yatesy, who's the club captain. You saw today when Morgan went off, he gave the armband to Chris Wood. But this guy is a captain in waiting, I think, irrespective almost of who's at the club next season. Can't speak highly enough of him, and been an absolutely probably the best signing in the whole Premier League this season, I would say. Yeah,
I agree. I'll just take the last slide here. Nico Williams, Callum Castell, friend of the podcast, tweeted that Nico made the most tackles, which was 7, won the most duels, which was 12, and was the most fouled player on the pitch, which was 3 times, making 6 clearances, 6 recoveries, 4 interceptions. Effing immense, to paraphrase Callum's tweet. I have to say that it cannot be underestimated how important Nico Williams has been to our season. When Alex Moreno came in from Villa, I was one of those that thought, well, that's the left back place tied up for the Villa loanee coming in. But Nico has shown, and he showed it last season, that if he's put out the team, he works so hard, and his attitude is absolutely first class. I think I saw an article, an interview last season that said when Nuno came in, Nico hadn't been playing or wasn't playing. And I think he went to Nuno and said, what can I do to get in your team? Or something like that. And that's what you want. as a manager, as an owner of a business, or you want someone who works for you to come to you and say, what do I do to improve? What can I do to get in your team? And I think that just shows the kind of maturity we've got from him and his performances playing again out of position. Although I know he's played left back for Wales, but you wouldn't know that he's not an out and out left back. He is so comfortable in that position. And, he's gone under the radar. Everyone talks about Anthony Robinson, and rightly so, at Fulham, having a great season, and he has. And Kirkej at Bournemouth as well. But for me, Nico Williams is right up there. He's right up there of the left backs in the division. So we're blessed to have him. There was one moment this afternoon when he kind of fired a ball back from our byline into our centre, into our kind of like middle of our box. That I kind of like was a bit of a harem scarum moment. But I love him. I think he's been brilliant, and I think he's been a fantastic signing for Nottingham Forest. So he had a great game as well. Okay, last 10 minutes, guys. I'm putting the table on the screen. Forest now still in 7th place, but tied with Man City on 65 points. Now, we know Man City play Bournemouth on Tuesday, which is not going to be an easy game. And I'm sure that every Forest fan watching and listening has already been looking at the table and analysing it. Newcastle losing away at Arsenal this afternoon keeps them in the mix. We play Chelsea, last game of the season. So that is one of our opponents that we can take care of. We have to hope, if we want Champions League football, that either Newcastle or Aston Villa slip up. And if Manchester City don't beat Bournemouth on Tuesday, then they are in the mix on the final day as well. And I put something in our WhatsApp group that, if you put a bet on Newcastle and Villa and Man City as a treble bet all to win, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's not going to come off. So it's not a foregone conclusion that those three teams are all going to win their final games. Newcastle play Everton. Aston Villa, remind me, they play... They're Old Trafford. I knew that, but I had a minute on my box. So they're going to Old Trafford, which is the interesting one. And Man City, they're the ones that are away at... Fulham, that's right.
They also had a good win today to keep them in the interest.
They had a good win as well. So it's all to play for. My question to the panel, right. A couple of weeks ago, we were all invested. It was Champions League. We were sitting third. We were all thinking and dreaming of Barcelona and Real Madrid. And I think we were all in that Champions League mindset. Now that we've fallen out of that placing, we were all thinking, okay, well, the Champions League's gone. But you know what? Europa would still be great. It would still be great. And maybe Europa's more our level. And if it's conference, that's still great. And maybe that's even more our level. So I think what I'm trying to get to, the question I'm getting to is, now that all three are probably an equal possibility, and we've come to terms with the fact that it possibly ain't going to be Champions League, where are we at with what's best for Forest? Where are we at with what really is best for Forest next season? Is it Champions League, or actually are we going to get stuffed every week and we can't cope? And maybe Europa League or Conference League is better for us. Richard Spray, where are you at? What's best for Forest next season? European football is done. It's really great that we're in Europe. But when it comes down to it, what's really best for Forest?
Oh, goodness. I think I'd get pelters if I say it's not Champions League, but I think it's the progression process. It's the natural sort of movement from where we've been to where we want to be. And I worry that Champions League puts a lot of pressure on us spending a considerable amount of money. The quality with which we have to face in that situation is much higher. Obviously, there's still some really good teams in both other competitions, particularly Europa. But from what I think is the most natural progression to where we need to go, what we need to do in order to build the squad out, so on and so forth, not overextend ourselves financially. Raf spoke very articulately in the episode he did recently with us about how critical it would be to not overspend in that kind of situation. So I would love to get Champions League. I'm not going to turn it down, but I would say Europa seems the most logical move to me. I think I like the competition we're going to face. And that's always good for these young players to face better competition throughout Europe, and it kind of refines them a little bit. I think we can get the right level of player that can help us build towards Champions League. Europa seems more winnable to me than, say, obviously Champions League would be. And so if we win that, we would be in Champions League the following season. And that seems a little bit more favorable for us from a sustainability standpoint. Do I want Champions League? Yeah, because we've all been pining for it since it sort of felt like it became a reality. But I would say Europa is probably where I find the most balance with this process, because I don't want to get the temptation of trying to go out and buy a 60 million pound player. I don't think they'll necessarily have to do that, but that kind of mode of thinking, that's what worries me a little bit. And then it puts a lot on us leading to the next season, because to try to sustain Premier League play, try to sustain staying in Europe, that seems like it'd be very difficult just because of the play we can make and what we have to do to manage that squad, considering, like Paul mentioned earlier, we play a lean squad today. So, yeah.
What about you, Brucey? Is Champions League too much too soon, or sod it? Let's go for it.
It would be amazing as a fan. The thought of Mbappe and Bellingham coming to the City ground. Can you imagine that? It's a dream. But the same token, they're going to smash us. So it depends on how you look at it. Europa League to me seems like one that we could possibly compete in. We could still attract some big names. We can still have time to establish our squad. But I'm a fan, and I want to win trophies. And to me, out of the three league Europa competitions, the Conference League is obviously the easiest one to win. I definitely wouldn't mind to see Forest in there because we could win it, and we would have a real shot. I mean, granted, we would still have to build some squad depth. That's going to have to happen either way. But I'm good with all three. Champions League again, it's almost surreal to think about, but it would be a damn good fun time. I would enjoy it.
And when you've been sat in those Champions League places, Paul, for so long, and we almost became quite comfortable with the fact that it's looking pretty good. We're going to get Champions League. For it to not be the case, but possibly could still be the case. It's kind of that to-ing and throwing and twisting and so on. And I always felt that actually put us in an underdog position, and maybe Forest are going to perform a bit better than if they were kind of leading the pack. But the most important thing really is the destination. Are we going to have some nice destinations to go to next term? There are some lovely hangouts in the Europa Conference League, just as much as there are in Europa or Champions League places, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things to say. I 100% agree that coming from behind, pardon the pun, you need to get your little soundbite out there. There you go. Suits us, I think, because we've looked a bit suffocated for the last 2 or 3 weeks when everyone started talking about Champions League and being in the spots. It's affected us. So I think this suits us going to this last game. And look, I'm personally at peace with whatever competition we end up in. I think I kind of concur with the view that Europa is probably about right. But having said that, if we end up finishing in the top 5, that means that over 38 games we'll have been better than 2 of City, Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, right? So that means we over 38 games we've earned the right to be better than those teams who you'd all say are Champions League ready. So therefore, by default, that kind of makes us Champions League ready, plus people that will add and strengthen and all the rest of it, whether it's 60 million quid or whether it's a couple of 20, 30 million pound players, we'll have to wait and see. So look, I'm at peace with all of it. In terms of destinations, you're absolutely right. I think I put a tweet out yesterday saying if we end up in the Conference League, anybody who's a Forest fan who's got a stag do coming up in the next 6 months is going to have a brilliant choice of some quirky European destinations to do that. And I mean, I did mine in Ljubljana, which I think is a potential Conference League opponent. So if we end up there, give me a DM. I know some places which would be good to go to. So yes, look, whatever it is, look, we're all going to have a fantastic time going to somewhere on the European continent, possibly into Asia. You know, if it ends up being Azerbaijan or Georgia or places like that, Turkey, for Eastern Turkey. So, yeah, what a fantastic! And as I said, you know, this time 3 years ago, rather than getting on a plane to Europe, we were getting on a minibus to Barnsley. So, I mean, crikey, you know, it's a different world. So hence I'm at peace with whatever happens next week. The fact that we've got a shot to get in the Champions League in the last day of the season is brilliant. I'm going to be there. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to try not to get too emotionally nervous and invested. I know I will do this. I'm talking up to once.
It's a lot.
At the edge of my seat, you know, tapping away, you know, cursing every missed pass and every shot that doesn't go in. So, but it's going to be a great experience, whatever. And just to be living, to have a chance to live those moments, I think is what we've all been craving for, you know, the last quarter of a century, and now we're here. So just rather than suffer it, let's enjoy it, I think would be my message.
For my own mental health, I publicly declared how at peace I was and am with us not being in the Champions League and it being Europa or Conference. I think like 7 or 8, 10 days ago. I think that was more just to kind of like kid myself and tell myself. And to be honest with you, look, I still feel that way. You know, there's been lots of kind of like chatter on social media amongst the fans, and I don't like it when there's a little bit of sniping amongst Forest fans, because I think that we're a good bunch generally, but we come from different generations, so many of us, and I've talked about before about being blessed to have known the Clough years, and trips to the old Wembley, and then of course the lean years that a lot of the younger fans only knew the leaner years in the Championship, and now we're kind of in the Premier League. It's all different again, and everyone's kind of got different experiences and different backgrounds. And sure, yeah, we all remember going to Barnsley or going to Milton Keynes or going somewhere else. But the chance to follow Forest in Europe is amazing. I don't even know how it will work. I don't even know what kind of tickets will be available, or who can or can't get tickets, or who's going to fly without one. But one thing you can be certain of is going to be an absolute ride, whether we go to Conference or Champions League. The chance to hear the Champions League music at the City Ground would be a little bit of a dream come true. It would be almost like this is surreal, you know, because it is not long ago that we remember the capitulation with Sabri Lamucci in charge and Nuno, whatever his name was, Da Costa, I think, putting the ball in his own net to lose at home to Stoke. That wasn't long ago. So, you know, the turnaround is unbelievable. If you want innuendos, then this is the podcast for you. So Paul Morley is your man. And don't forget as well.
I've seen more tackle on Pornhub. Bloody hell.
Exactly. So we're out of time just about. Although I think Danscape says he's clipped that comment already, and we'd expect nothing less. Okay, we're out of time. We could chat all night, but we're not going to, because you get bored. What I would say is that it's been a fantastic victory for Forest, and we go into the last game full of hope. Brucey over in Texas, thank you very much for joining us. You're an absolute legend. Anything quickly to say before you go?
Yeah, last 2 seasons we were excited about not being relegated. Now we're looking at Europe. It's amazing. What a time. That's all.
Yeah, indeed. Paul Morley, I think you're at Chelsea next week, aren't you? So looking forward to that one.
Massively, yeah. Like I said, if possible, I know it's really difficult, but let's just try and enjoy it rather than endure it, whatever happens.
Indeed. Thank you. And Richard Spray over in Oklahoma. Closing thoughts from you, my compadre.
I'm going to say I'm very grateful for this guy right here and get Morgan Gibbs-White. He has been the most electric and engaging player that I can remember in many, many years. There's been great ones, even when we were in the championship. We all loved Brennan, and Mikel Antonio, I know, is a personal favorite of yours, Greg. But he has been an absolute blessing for me, and my son, who has never really been that interested in football, but through Morgan Gibbs-White has become an absolutely rabid and passionate fan of Nottingham Forest. And so I give him a lot of credit and kudos, because he's been absolutely brilliant for us since coming up in the Premier League. He's got 7 goals now, which is the most goals he's gotten since being in the Premier League for us. Between him and Anthony Elanga, I think they've been responsible for about 60+% of what's happened from a goal scoring standpoint. So they've been tremendous. And I fear that this may have been his last away match. And I fear that next week, maybe the last match he's played for us, at least in this current, tenure that he's had with us. So if that is the case, I applaud him tremendously, because he's been absolutely essential and has been one of the most passionate and energetic. And the work he's done off the pitch has been tremendous as well. How he's engaged the city and some very fans who have gone through some things, right? One in particular that had cancer, has been tremendous. And so I love the guy, and I'm so grateful that I have his shirt. The first shirt I bought in over 30 years was a Morgan Gibbs White shirt. And no one has captivated my time as a Forest fan more than he has, other than Stuart Pearce. So thank you, Morgan Gibbs White, for the amazing stuff you've done for our club, including what you did today. And
since you know me, you've bought about another 30 shirts, I think. So
that is the problem. Yes. I didn't slow down after that.
Good friend of all podcasts, Chris Aylmer from Forest All Over. He's a legend. We love Chris Aylmer. And one thing I love about Chris Aylmer is that his passion matches mine, matches yours, matches everybody's. And I think he dropped you a voice note, didn't he, Richard?
Richard Spray. We have just re-energized the Forest machine.
Well,
amazing.
What more can we say? We have re-energized the Forest machine. Listen, guys and girls, those of you listening and watching, thank you so much for being with us for this Sunday night episode of Talking Reds to review the West Ham game away. Get behind the team. It does not matter what the destination is. We've got into Europe. We've hit, what we're on, 65 points, whatever it is. I mean, we've doubled last season's total. The first team in Premier League history, I think, to kind of double what we did last season. No matter what happens, it has been an exceptional season with exceptional players, an exceptional manager, exceptional staff, an exceptional owner, but most of all, you guys, the exceptional fans of fans.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.